Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Steven, and today I wanted to answer a question from one of my subscribers. He asked some questions about my frame straightening jig, and so I'm gonna go a little more in depth with it today and show you how I made it and how it works. We'll do a little show and tell under the truck. So this is what it looks like. I don't know if in my previous video I was maybe just kind of sped right through it, but it's basically a piece of 3/4 inch all thread. Okay, now you can get all thread in like this silver all thread is grade 2 light duty all thread, and I went ahead and bought the grade 5 all thread, which usually has a black oxide finish, and it's just a little stiffer and doesn't flex as much, and it doesn't cost a whole lot more money, so it's worth, you know, a few dollars for a solid piece, especially when you're torquing on your frame. So what I did was, this is 3/4 inch all thread, and I think these nuts are 3/4 by 10 inches, 10 threads per inch. So this, just a piece of pipe similar to this, whatever you have around, it doesn't really matter, just as long as it fits in there. And then this is just a piece of solid rod, and its size really depends on how big, and I'll show you under the truck, how big the hole is in your frame is the way you size this. And then these are just the little cutoffs that I have all the time from when I'm making stuff, and I save them and I turn it into a gusset, so it gives this a lot of strength. Okay, so just a short piece of pipe, and let's see, how long did I make that? That's 3 inches long, and this piece of rod was 2.5, 2.25. It really doesn't matter. It's, you know, you just, and I'll show you under the truck why it's this long. So weld it on there, put your gusset in, weld that on, and then this little piece here is just, the whole purpose of this is to keep this from falling out of the hole while I'm adjusting it. It doesn't, that's all it's for. It's just, otherwise you kind of need 3 hands to put this in place. With this there, it makes it easier to do it by yourself. So, and that's it. This part goes on here. Now, the way this can work 2 ways. You can spread your frame apart or pull it in. Okay, and it really amounts to which way you turn these and which one of these nuts. Like if you're using this nut and you have it this way, you're gonna push the frame out. And if you have it the other way and you turn this nut, you're gonna push the frame in. So it works for both spreading and collapsing the frame. Works really well. All right, so put this on here, the nut on there. Now, one of the things that I had to do on the frame was, on my frame, the bottom was tucked in. And right above it, where it was bent in, was the bed mounting bolt holes, okay? So I was afraid that if I started pushing this out, the frame out, it would push out the bed frame holes too, and they wouldn't line up anymore. So what I did was I just took a piece of just any square tube. This is just some stuff like that they were gonna throw away at work, which I can't understand why you throw good steel away. So I robbed it out of I brought it home, and then what I did is I drilled a hole through one end and then welded a short, you know, cut this in half and welded a short little pin on there. And then I did measured how far apart the bed mounting holes were, and then put another pin on the other end. So this piece would have dropped down inside the bed mounting holes and maintained their distance. And that way I could pull the bottom of the frame back out so it was nice and plumb. So I think that makes sense. Let's go into the truck and let me show you what this looks like kind of in action. I'm gonna watch my head so I don't bang my head. Okay, so let me show you what's going on here. So this is the area of my frame that was bent in, okay? And I think it was bent in, well, I don't really know, but before I decided to box the frame in, this whole center section of the frame could move. I could pick up one corner of the front or the back, and the other side wouldn't leave the ground until I have it quite a ways up off the ground. So the frame has actually had a lot of twist to it. And I wanted to stiffen it up by boxing it in. And so my thinking was, before I box it in, I'm going to make the frame rails straight. That way, once I weld these plates on, they'll stay straight. And they did. So my theory was, it proved out. So here's this thing in action. Now, these little pins here, if you can see, they fit into this hole and they kind of hold it in place so that you can take your nuts, and as you tighten this up, you keep tightening these, it actually push the frame out to make it plumb. And all I did to check that was I just took my square and I got to the point where you can see there's no gap. It's nice and straight. So, and before I did that, there was a ginormous gap, like a 1/4 inch or so. So, and that bar that I had up here in this hole for the bed mount, it kept the top of the frame from moving. So all I was adjusting was the twist. The reason that this sticks down like this is so there's room for the plate, the boxing plate, to fit across. See, I didn't want to just put a clamp on it, or a spreader clamp or something, because you couldn't push on this because you hadn't welded it in place yet. I hope I'm explaining that right. But, so that's what I did that. Now, if your frame is a little goofy in a spot where you don't have a hole, just drill a hole. Drill a hole in the spots where you want it, because you can always fill them in later. It's not a big deal. And then get your frame straight the way you want it, get the twist out of it, and then go ahead and put your boxing plates on. And when you what I noticed was, once I welded these boxing plates on, this piece got really loose. It just was, because you could tell that it was holding the frame where it was supposed to be. Now, if your frame was going the other way and you wanted to push it out or push it in, you could just use this other nut. It's pretty cool. It turned out to be a pretty nice little, let's see, I gotta get this out. And see those little pins, they just kind of hook on the edge of the hole so that you can kind of get it in place while you're adjusting it. So this is about 40 inches long, so you can make these as long as, however big your frame on your vehicle is, or truck, or car. And then I made mine 40 because they come 4 feet long. So and I didn't want to leave it 4 feet long because I knew that when I walked by this truck, I would whack my shin on this, and that would be bad because I've already got too many battle scars on my shins. That's why I wear long pants, because it's not pretty. All right, so I hope that makes sense. And see, now, I remember when I changed over my bed mounting, I went to this style, so the nut is here. So this original hole that I put in here, the reason that this hole was here was so with the boxing plate I could run a socket up inside there and tighten the nut inside the frame. But when I went to this design here, which I like so much better, the nut's right here, easy to get to. So when I strip the truck down to paint the frame, I'm just going to weld up this hole. Just plug it, weld it, grind it smooth. And it's going to look cool. So, gosh, I hope I explained that to my viewer. I hope that this makes sense to you. I drilled a hole on this here so I could hang it up on the wall. And it's really a very simple little jig. And by having this extension here, it gives you the ability to work on something with this not being in your way. So that's why I designed it the way I did. So I hope that answers your questions, and I hope that helps you guys out on your project, because you know, you don't need a fancy frame straightening jig. Just make one and save a bunch of money. It's been great spending time with you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all your subscriptions. I really appreciate it. Leave me comments. I appreciate that, and I'll try and get back to you on it, maybe with a video or maybe just in the comments section. So thanks again. Be safe out there. Be safe in your shop, and I'll see you next time. Idaho Fabricator.